Welcome back, you're watching 9 News. Moving on to Asian news. There's a new sign that the territorial disputes between China and Japan is still straining. According to Chinese protocol, China will only send its deputy finance minister to the annual meetings of the IMF and the World Bank in Tokyo. Usually, such trips will be led by China's most senior finance officials. That would imply that the governor of People's Bank of China, Zhou Xiaochuan, and Finance Minister Xie Xiren will attend such kind of meetings. But this time, when asked to confirm whether Zhou and Xie were heading to Tokyo, China's Central Bank and Finance Ministry declined to make any comments. This is the first time in nearly half a century for Japan to host International Monetary Fund and World Bank annual meetings. According to Reuters, about 20,000 people are expected to be involved in the events. Sino-Japanese relations deteriorated sharply in September after Japan bought the disputed East China Sea Islands, sparking anti-Japanese protests across China. The sales of Japanese car makers have been badly influenced. Japanese car makers reported tumbling sales in China for September. Toyota's sale in China fell 48.9% in September from a year earlier, while Honda issued a 40.5% slide in its sale. Meanwhile, Nissan decreased 35.3% and Suzuki fell 42.5% last month from a year earlier. The impact of a territorial row between the two countries has been partly confirmed by the sales record, raising concerns about Japan's future in the world's biggest auto markets. Before protests and calls for boycotts of Japanese products, Japanese car makers had just over a fifth of the Chinese auto markets. Analysis said the sales could continue to weaken as long as the diplomatic tension remains. The South Korean government has designated an area hit by a toxic chemical leak as a special disaster zone. Over 3,000 people have been affected. 15. In a normal year, October is supposed to be the busiest month for vineyards and rice fields in the southern parts of South Korea. But a toxic leak from an explosion at a chemical plant in Gumi 2 weeks ago has affected thousands of people in the area, with 5 victims dead and 18 people injured at the time. According to authorities, the exact reason for the explosion is still being investigated. About 3,200 people visited hospitals as they suffered headaches, nausea, sore throats and severe coughs. The chemical leak has spread across about 230 hectares of farmland, affected at least 3,200 livestock, damaged more than 1,000 vehicles, and cost about $16 million worth of damage to companies in the area. The national government said it will offer financing for recovery efforts to help solve the problem. Insurance and compensation payments, as well as tax cuts, will also be provided to residents and companies affected by the disaster. Now moving on to sports news. Captain Ryan Nelson and fellow fullback Winston Reid will miss All Whites game against Tahiti on Saturday.
New Zealand's Premier League stars are both under an injury cloud, so have pulled out of this weekend's match against Tahiti in Tahiti. This is a big disappointment for the team and the country, as Nelson and Reid are clearly our best players in their position at the back, and they're the most experienced. However, coach Ricky Herbert said they have an 18-man squad, so have the talent to cover for them. Reid and Nelson will fly directly to Christchurch for the return match on Tuesday, when they hope to be fit and ready to play.
After having been banned for life, iconic 7-time Tour de France winner Lance Armstrong is again criticizing the process undertaken.
After almost single-handedly bringing cycling into the mainstream with his unprecedented 7 victories in the world's most grueling race, in the French countryside and the capital Paris, only to be disgraced in a drug scandal, Armstrong is again questioning the authorities' processes. Only last month he said he'd had enough after years of court cases and would no longer say a word. Well, now he's gone back on that word. His lawyers have issued a statement saying that the entire process and procedure of the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency was flawed and had not given his client a fair hearing. It's impossible to imagine that Armstrong will ever recover anything, as his reputation has been permanently sullied.
Former Tall Black Sean Marks has moved from the courts into the offices at San Antonio Spurs.
After representing New Zealand with distinction for many years, Marks finally cracked the big time when he was offered a contract with the San Antonio Spurs in America. He played for them from 2003 to 2006, and even though he was often on the bench, he stayed loyal. That loyalty was rewarded recently when Marks was given a promotion to Director of Basketball Operations at the Spurs. He's also become General Manager of the Austin Toros, the NBA Development League team.
Now moving on to Happy Diner, introducing and reviewing favourite restaurants in Auckland.
Before walking into the restaurant, you are immediately bombarded with the delicious smells of fresh cooked pizzas. And once you walk in, you will find photos of Italian celebrities and comments of customers hung all over the walls. It is not hard to tell that the owner is passionate and proud of his country and food. This pizza may look plain, but because of the 24 hours fermentation of the bread, topped with a few delicate toppings, this simple yet delicious combination brings out the natural sweetness and flavors of the bread. The chef first kneads the fermented dough into a smooth pizza bread, then tomato paste, mozzarella cheese are put on top and baked for 3 minutes. Lastly, add some shaved Parma ham, rocket leaves and sprinkle Parmesan cheese, olive oil, and it's done. How simple is that?
Personally, I don't actually like eating the pizza crust because I used to think it was tasteless, but this is so different. The chef told me that the dough has been fermented for 24 hours. No wonder the bread is nice and chewy.
Other than the ordinary pizzas, they also have calzones. The ingredients used in calzones are pretty much like a normal pizza, but the method of making is actually similar to cheese dumplings. The toppings are stuffed inside the pizza, making a half-circle shape. Because the stuffings are cheese and tomato paste, the outer shell is crispy, yet the inner content is rich with cheese and soft and chewy.
We try to keep everything very, very simple and very in a traditional way.
Yeah.
The way we cook it, so the oven is very, very high temperature, it's around 500 degrees Celsius, and the way we fermented the dough is take around 24 hours, because we put a little bit yeast, so it takes a long time, but it's good for your digestion and for everything.